the Hoover Institute's Niall Ferguson in the form of one of Zizek's Armenian radio jokes. So, just to give a paradigm or an example of the Armenian radio jokes, Zizek gives a joke of, no, actually, let's just go straight to it. It doesn't really need the example prior to it. So the jokes always had the form of a call in and then an answer during thought to be during the Soviet period, and it was apparently a popular form of joke during the Soviet period. Somebody calls in and they ask about a lottery. No, let's say an awards ceremony. Let's say a grading. So is it true? So let's say the guy calls in and his question is it true that Niall Ferguson has been given an A++ by his teacher on his recent appearance of the Hoover Institute podcast called Treason of the Intellectuals? And then the answer is, in principle, it's true, but actually he got an F, and he wasn't writing about the treason of the intellectuals, but rather he was presenting a case for a certain political tack as represented by the Hoover Institute, a certain form of conservatism shared by Richard Epstein and John Yoo to some, I'm not sure how much by Epstein, but at least by John Yoo. And in addition, he didn't produce any kind of argument, but rather, according to the version of Max Weber, what he did is he selected a bunch of facts such that they were the facts he wanted to be included and no others, and they were supposed to lead the intelligent person to draw their own conclusions. So it's obvious that if somebody were to look at the presentation they're making and then they were to conclude, if I added a couple extra facts and subtracted a couple of facts, the audience would come to a totally different conclusion than the one that the Hoover Institute wants me to push. Then he wouldn't do that. So here's the problem. It's a double vision problem. One, there's just his naive sense that he's right about everything, because he's not the most, let's say, thoughtful person. He's just a person that's good at giving a presentation. He would naturally take his own naive views as the truth. So then he forgets that his views are one skewed political view. So, but in addition to that, he wants us to start with Max Weber's version as though it were the truth. But it's not the truth. It's just the result of this Verdertiles strike, or the two Verdertiles strike. This so-called value judgment controversies, and the result of working out all kinds of theoretical problems of which Mr. Ferguson has no awareness. So, but in addition, there's sort of like a third view, which is just a quasi-hazy view of the ordinary person listening to these things with no specialized knowledge and just sort of whatever sounds good to them. But okay, what would be a better view? It's actually not that clear. All I could say is when we look at these matters from a Straussian point of view, I think we've at least considered more sides of the issue. Maybe it's not better to have considered more sides of the issue. Maybe it's better to have the intense passion narrowed within this super concentrated stupidity, as Nietzsche put it, the iya of the donkey, which indicates sort of, according to Nietzsche, a NVIDIA, but not a false NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA means literally like you vid something and on site you have you're disgusted, you're repulsed. It's like you have a prejudice against it. But Nietzsche says we have to have something that's that brutal as just like the Systems 1 version to goad us into doing anything. This is the prejudice that Nietzsche speaks of. We should cultivate prejudices for various things. That's the problem too, that the prejudices can be altered from a more from a view more standing back and more nihilistic or Wissenschaft neutral in this sense of fact. And what we should really say is a fact, which is in the science, which is usually understood as something causal, has against consent. Isn't that much nicer than the way it's usually stated as against subjectivity? There's this infinite issue of consent, and then there's the facts. And so all Weber is suggesting is that people shouldn't quite know what's being hoisted on them, that somebody's producing a bunch of facts in order to get them to consent to something. That's not such a cogent solution here that Ferguson's starting his case with. I mean, I'm not inclined to try to go into everything that he said that was very questionable or wrong, because there's so many things. It's a very long laundry list. But I think that gives a suggestion of the difficulties.